Hey everybody, welcome to Beaming Notes, and today we're going to look at the critical analysis, theme, and tone of the poem A Psalm of Life, a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Critical analysis. A psalm is a sacred song or a hymn. H.W. Longfellow has indeed penned this poem in the tradition of a religious verse with the same spiritual fervor. However, it is a very practical psalm, the aim of which is to enlighten young readers on the best way to lead their life. The poet urges the readers to not think of life as waste because of its transience, but make sure to defeat death by filling it with activities to the fullest. He asks the reader to discard the past and future and focus on cultivating the present and nourishing the soul in order to reach the pinnacle of self-development. This psalm imparts the moral lessons of courage and patience as the most important virtues on our path of self-actualization. He says that there is no substitute to hard work, and hence one must labor endlessly to able to reach that point in life when the threat of death will not bother us, because our soul, which is immortal, will be nourished because of all the work we have done by seizing the day. The style of the poet is very ornate. He does not address the central idea of the poem in a direct way. Instead, he weaves it through a wonderful play of words engaged in metaphors, allusions, and symbols. This increases the psalm-like qualities of the poem. Most biblical pieces have their meaning hidden behind a layer of poetic devices. The writing style of the poet is resplendent with spiritual fervor, such that it directly touches our soul and we feel motivated by the encouraging words of the poet. This poem is the perfect exemplification of how Longfellow was heavily influenced by the European traditions. Because of the way the poet has formulated and expressed his thoughts in this piece, it can easily be identified with the British poetry of the Victorian period. It is important to note how the brevity of the poem belies its profundity. Although the poem is just 36 lines, it touches upon a number of themes and imparts many valuable life lessons. It asks us to cultivate the soul, seize the present, have courage and patience, labor endlessly, get inspired from the best, and inspire the coming generations. These are the few to list. Through just 36 lines, the poet has managed to inspire the readers of his time and many generations of them that followed. It is interesting to see the poet's perspective on the temporal nature of life which the poem brings out. He makes it very clear that life is temporary and short, but he makes us feel alright about it by giving us a perfect way to invest it with meaning, by beautifying our present and developing the self and the soul. It would not be an exaggeration to state that this poem is one of the best invocation pieces penned till date. The continuing popularity of the poem bears testimony to the same. Theme. The major theme of the poem is Carpe Diem, which is Latin for seize the day. Longfellow thinks that the present holds the key to fulfilling our transient life and making it worth something. According to him, we will get nothing by involving ourselves with our past or present. The best way to lead one's life is to fill our days with as much productive activity as possible without wasting our time in merriment or meager sorrows. The poet asserts fervently in the poem that if we work on our present and develop ourselves and our soul through it, we will be able to defeat death. Transience of life is another theme that has been touched upon in the poem. The poet says that our time on this planet is finite. He makes us aware of this in the 4th stanza when he says, Our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. His aim behind reminding us about the temporal nature of life is not to scare us, but to inspire us to make the most of our gift of life while it lasts. The importance of the soul is another theme that has been touched upon in the poem. The poet says that our soul is our ticket to immortality. Our bodies will go back to the dust it comes from, but our soul will live on, so we must add meaning to our life by trying to cultivate our soul. The power of art is an important theme. The poet has hinted in the poem that one of the best ways to enrich our lives and soul is by indulging in art. Art is long, time is fleeting. Courage is a recurring theme in the poem. The poet does not promise us a rosy picture of the path that he has prescribed for us. He ensures us that we will face difficulties and obstacles. However, he also assures us that these hardships and struggles will be easy for us to sail through if we have the virtue of courage strong in our hearts. Tone. A psalm of life, as the name suggests, is a sacred song beckoning mankind to walk on the right path. Hence, the tone of the poem is very didactic and filled with spiritual fervor. The poet adopts a didactic tone when he tells us about the uncertainty of life and the importance of the present. He adopts a spiritually fervent tone when he asks us to enrich our soul and not be scared of the hardships of life. The tone of the poet is very encouraging all throughout. At every point, he encourages us to seize our present and fill it with a burst of activity, either by giving examples of great men of the past or by asking us to have the courage and patience in face of hardships. On the whole, the poem has a moral tone, but at no point does it sound preachy because of all the vigor and enthusiasm which Longfellow has awarded his psalm with. Poetic Devices. Mournful numbers. This is an instance of allusion. An allusion is said to take place when reference is made to other works. Here, mournful numbers refers to those sad verses of the Bible which speak of life's futility. This phrase is also an instance of transferred epithet. This figure of speech shows a dislocation or transfer of an adjective from its proper subject to another associated with it or accompanying it. The verses are not mournful. It's a message implied by the verses, that is. Life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers. Empty dreams. This is an instance of metaphor. In a metaphor, an implied comparison is made between two different things or ideas. Here, dreams are being compared to a container that is empty. Soul is dead that slumbers. Here, the soul is undergoing personification. The human attributes of sleeping and dying have been attributed to the soul. Grave. The grave has been used as a symbol of death. And our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating. Hearts. Here heart symbolizes life. Heart, though stout and brave. Here the heart undergoes personification. The human attribute of being brave has been given to the heart. And our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating. Here we can see the poetic device of parallelism. Heartbeat has been paralleled with drum beats. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life. These lines are very metaphorical. Here the world has been compared to a battlefield and life as a war camp on that battleground. Past bury its dead. Past has undergone personification as it has been shown to perform the human activity of burying something. Sands of time. This phrase symbolizes history. Perhaps another, sailing over life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother. These lines are very metaphorical. Your life has been compared to rough seas, and a lonely and helpless human troubled with life has been compared to the forlorn and shipwrecked sailor. With a heart for any fate, heart has been used once again to imply courage.